How far would you go if someone told you to? It's a question we like to think we have a clear answer to, but in the shadows of our minds, the answer often shifts, revealing the darker corners of our souls. We often envision ourselves as heroes, bravely standing up for what's right in the face of adversity. Yet, history and psychology reveal a much darker, more intricate tale lurking beneath the surface. The horrifying truth is that the line between good and evil is terrifyingly thin, often blurring in the shadows of our deepest fears. Evil isn't just the realm of monsters lurking in the shadows. It's a seed waiting to sprout in the hearts of the most ordinary people given the right conditions. In the quiet corners of everyday life, it can fester and grow, transforming the seemingly innocent into something dark and twisted. Today, we're diving deep into the chilling psychology, groundbreaking experiments, and real historical events that reveal why normal people just like you and me, are capable of committing unspeakable atrocities. Let's travel back to 1961 to a laboratory at Yale University. Psychologist Stanley Milgram designed an experiment to understand obedience. Participants were told they were part of a learning study and had to administer electric shocks to another person, an actor, every time they answered a question incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. Before them loomed a foreboding machine, its array of ominous switches glinting in the dim light. Each switch, marked with chilling precision, offered a range from a mild 15 volts to a deadly 450 volts, ominously labeled XXX. As the voltage increased, the actor would scream, complain of a heart condition, and eventually fall silent. If a participant hesitated, a man in a lab coat would simply say, "The experiment requires that you continue." What do you think happened? An astonishing 65% of participants went all the way to the maximum 450-volt shock simply because an authority figure told them to. The Milgram experiment taught us a chilling lesson. Most people will obey authority even when it means violating their deepest moral convictions. They weren't evil people. They were teachers, engineers, and postal workers who found themselves trapped in a situation where obedience overpowered their conscience. Now, let's fast forward a decade to 1971 at Stanford University. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo wanted to know what happens when you put good people in a bad place. He created a mock prison in the basement of the psychology building and recruited male students to play the roles of guards and prisoners. The participants were randomly assigned their roles, and what followed was so disturbing, the experiment had to be shut down after just 6 days instead of the planned 2 weeks. The guards, given uniforms, billy clubs, and mirrored sunglasses to hide their eyes, quickly became sadistic and abusive. They forced prisoners to do push-ups, stripped them naked, and subjected them to psychological torment. The prisoners, in turn, became passive, broken, and emotionally distressed. The Stanford prison experiment revealed that the power of a situation and a given role can corrupt ordinary people. It wasn't about bad apples. It was about the bad barrel. The uniforms and the power dynamic created a sense of anonymity and dehumanization, turning well-adjusted students into tyrants and victims. Evil wasn't a personality trait, it was a product of the system. This leads us to a powerful psychological concept called de-individuation. This is what happens when you lose your sense of individual identity and personal responsibility by becoming part of a group or hiding behind a mask. Think about it. A person in a crowd during a riot might throw a rock through a window, something they'd never do alone. A user hidden behind an anonymous username might leave a hateful comment they'd never say to someone's face. When you feel anonymous, your internal moral compass can get muffled by the noise of the group. Accountability disappears. As the saying goes, when no one is watching, the mask reveals the truth. De-individuation explains mob mentality, the frenzy of sports hooligans, and the venom of online trolls. It shows how being part of a collective can strip away our individuality and, with it, our humanity. This idea of normal people doing terrible things isn't just a lab finding, it has a name in the real world: the banality of evil. This term was coined by the philosopher Hannah Arendt while she was covering the trial of Adolf Eichmann, one of the major organizers of the Holocaust. The world expected to see a monstrous, foaming at the mouth sadist. But what Arendt found was something far more terrifying: a bland, mediocre bureaucrat. Eichmann wasn't driven by deep-seated hatred. His defense was simple and chilling. I was just following orders. He was a master organizer, a problem solver whose problem was the logistics of mass murder. Arendt argued that Eichmann's evil wasn't radical, it was banal, commonplace. It was the evil of a man who simply stopped thinking. He obeyed orders, followed the rules, and never paused to reflect on the moral horror of his actions. This is the banality of evil, the capacity for ordinary people to commit atrocities, not out of malice, but out of thoughtless obedience and a desire to fit in and do their job well. You might think these are just stories from the past, but these psychological patterns are repeating themselves right now, in the digital world. The authorities we obey today aren't always men in lab coats. Sometimes they're algorithms that feed us polarizing content or the unseen pressure of a social media mob. We see moral disengagement everywhere. People justify cruelty by saying, "It's just a comment," or "everyone else is doing it." They distance themselves from the harm they cause because it's filtered through a screen. Technology, in many ways, has become a massive, global-scale Stanford prison experiment. It gives us anonymity, roles to play, and a sense of distance from the consequences of our actions, amplifying our capacity for collective cruelty on a scale Milgram could have never imagined. So what does this all mean? It means we are all capable of evil. This isn't to say we're all secretly monsters, but that the potential for both great good and great evil lies within every single one of us. Our behavior is not fixed. It is powerfully shaped by our environment, the influence of authority, and our social context. The path to atrocity rarely starts with a conscious choice to be evil. It often begins with silence, indifference, or misplaced trust. It often begins with a tiny, seemingly harmless step, blind obedience, that urge to avoid making waves, or just the simple act of looking away, It's insidious. It's that first small moral compromise, the kind that quietly whispers, "Just this once," opening the door to much larger, darker choices lurking in the shadows. So, how do we resist this dark potential? The first and most powerful defense is awareness. Understanding these psychological traps is the first step to avoiding them. Knowing about the Milgram experiment makes you more likely to question authority. Knowing about the Stanford prison experiment makes you more aware of the corrupting influence of power. Empathy is our shield, a powerful barrier against the shadows of hatred. When we truly see the humanity in others, it becomes nearly impossible to dehumanize them. And finally, critical thinking is our sword, cutting through the fog of ignorance and illuminating the truth. We must constantly question our own motives, the orders we are given, and the consensus of the group. It takes immense courage to be the one person in the room who says no when everyone else is saying yes. But history is shaped by those who dare to dissent. Resisting evil means stopping those small moral compromises before they grow into something monstrous. In the end, evil doesn't storm into our lives like a Hollywood villain. It doesn't start with monsters. It starts with ordinary people looking away, following orders without question, and choosing the comfort of conformity over the difficulty of moral courage. So I'll leave you with the same question we started with, but now with the weight of everything we've discussed. In those experiments, in those historical moments, what would you have done? Think about it, because understanding the darkness within is the only way we can be sure to choose the light. Thanks for joining me on this intriguing deep dive into the unknown. If this video made you think, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content that explores the complexities of the human mind. Stay curious, stay critical, and I'll see you in the next one. It was Profile Evil.